Welcome to the Natural Health Podcast, where we bring awareness of sustainable health in the business hustle space. The Natural Health Podcast is perfect for the high-performing, business-minded individuals who want to work with their biochemistry to achieve success and optimal health. It's Friday, which means it's time for friends sharing facts about health, business, and overall success. In today's episode, we talk to Naturopathic Dr. Cait Strong. Cait Strong is a naturopathic doctor and the founder and creator of the Fertility Reset program. Her program helps women to remove mind-body blocks, reset and strengthen their fertility so they're able to get pregnant naturally and easily, even when medications or fertility procedures have failed. She lives in Connecticut, USA, and with her awesome husband, Colin, and her sweet daughter, Lily. Some interesting facts and hobbies that Cait has is she absolutely loves spending time with her husband, Colin, and her daughter, who's currently 17 months old. And they're always trying to make her laugh. She's also an avid reader, audiobook, podcast listener, especially loves learning about mindset and spirituality. And she also loves building furniture. She made their farmhouse bed from scratch. Welcome to the Natural Health Podcast, Cait.
Thank you so much for having me on. It's an honor, and I'm so grateful, and I'm really excited to be here.
Absolutely brilliant. Yeah. So you built a whole bed from scratch.
Yeah.
What instigated that?
I know. Oh my goodness. My poor husband I convinced him that I wanted to do this. You know how I got there is that I saw a picture on Pinterest and I was like, if people are doing this, I can do it. And just slowly but surely I built it, but it was a little ridiculous because we slept like on the floor for like 6 months until it was built, maybe even longer. So yeah, it's, you know what, growing up, my dad would do a lot of woodworking. So I think I kind of got it from him. But I'm very proud of it.
Yeah, that's absolutely amazing. And kudos to your husband for sticking through for the 6 months.
I know. Yeah.
It's interesting when we see things online like Pinterest or Instagram, we're like, oh, we can do that. It's kind of like, can we? I'll
have to send you a picture.
Yeah, send it over.
Quite a creation. Yeah.
Absolutely great. Wonderful. So look, in a bio, we said that you're a naturopathic doctor, you know, and you have this fertility reset program. I guess there's a bit of passion in regards to fertility and women's health and so forth. But I wanted the audience to get to know you a little bit more, as in like, what have been the key turning points to get you where you are now, you know, being a naturopathic doctor and leading these programs?
So another funny story about becoming a naturopathic doctor, you know, in the States, I would say alternative medicine is really kind of catching on more now, like in the last 5 or so years, maybe a bit longer. But I hadn't grown up, you know, in the natural world at all. I just grew up like total conventional, regular medicine. And we live right by Yale, but, you know, one of the best hospitals in the States. And so I actually was like super skeptical of naturopathic doctors when my mom started to go and see one. I thought that they were like a hoax, like these hippies who were just gonna, you know, give me incense or something. So I was super skeptical. And but then I went to an appointment with my mom and I was just blown away. Like, wow, this doctor has told me more about my body and how things work and why things are happening, like, than I've ever heard from any other doctor. And like, I was just hooked. And so he actually let me come and shadow him and like really encouraged me to go to school. And so I went back to school and went on to get my doctorate. And I think what really motivates me still, and what really motivated me to become a naturopath is, you know, this question of why does disease happen? Why does it happen to some people and not others, given similar circumstances? Like, what is like the real root cause? And it's been quite a journey trying to answer that question for sure. And so then after graduating school, I worked in a busy kind of integrative clinic, I would say. And I just really developed this passion for helping couples to get pregnant, because I still feel so strongly this way, that there's so many people out there suffering. It's like 1 in 8 couples. And it just doesn't need to be that way. There are answers, there are solutions. Like it's like, it doesn't need to be that way. And a lot of times when I would say in all circumstances, really, when you fix what's really going on, in the underlying root cause way, then it becomes easy to become pregnant, which is so different than what most couples who are struggling with infertility hear. So yeah, and so now that's all I do is help women with especially unexplained infertility to get pregnant naturally.
Yeah. I love that you kind of were a skeptic, as in, what are they going to give me, sage, and it's going to heal everything?
I know. Now I'm like, oh, yeah, I love all of that now.
now you're the one that's giving sage to people. No, I love that, because it's important that you said that, because there are people out there, and here in Australia, alternative medicine, is seen as still in those eyes,
Yeah.
And it's interesting that you got to shadow someone so experienced, and you got to see, and you opened your mind. I think that's brilliant.
Yeah, totally.
And you stuck
I'm
with
very
it.
grateful for that experience. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely brilliant. And then you decided, to move on and to be a naturopath and help individuals with fertility, which is a huge, absolutely huge issue worldwide. It's not just in the US, just in Australia.
Right.
It's literally everywhere. And the rates are just extraordinary with the infertility rate. I mean, here with my, family and friends around, there's a lot of couples that, try for a year and they still can't get pregnant. And I love your passion about it, and that's what's keeping you driving every single day.
Yeah.
But I wanted to know a little bit more about what success looks like for you right now. I mean, back in the days, it would have been different. I'm not too sure what you did before you were a naturopathic doctor, but I guess success would have looked a little bit different to what it does now. So what does success look like for Cait today?
I mean, I would think for most people, but being happy is I think what, for me, the definition of success. And then what makes, being able to spend a lot of quality time with my family. So it's like time freedom, being able to have a lot of impact with my program and help, a lot of women. And I'm trying to take it globally. So that is a huge driver for me of success for sure. And yeah, I think just like the freedom of being able to do things on a day-to-day basis that bring me and my family joy and happiness. I think that's missing for a lot of, I was going to maybe talk to you about this at some point today, but yeah, I just think that so often people aren't doing things that make them happy, or they allow themselves to be, like they have maybe some limiting beliefs. For instance, like becoming a naturopathic doctor, like I really encourage anyone that's, that has passion or really, wants to follow a career path to just do it. Because if that's what's going to make you happy, like things will work out and you'll figure it out. Like just, I think, figure out what will make you happy and then just do it. Yeah. Because I didn't have much of a science background at all. Like I had to go back to school, but if I could get through it, you guys could get through it.
I love that. And you're right. Like once you make that decision to go for it, then things will fall into place. And just because we're told to have that, other job that we're not quite happy in, someone else might be quite happy in it, but we may not be. Maybe not. It's for us. And some people may not be happy being a naturopathic doctor, and that's fine. It's just that what you're happy with, being a naturopath doesn't solve all the issues in your life, but it is definitely like what you're saying is do what you love and be happy in it. I love that. I love that. I love that. So look, let's talk about today's topic. I know you're
Sure.
eager to share your information.
Yeah.
I know you're wanting to get it out there. Let's talk about stress and infertility, and if there is a link. Before I guess we get started, I guess it'll be a good thing to start off with explaining what actually infertility is. What does it mean to be infertile?
Yeah. So the kind of textbook definition is when a couple is trying to conceive, unprotected, of course, for a year, and they're unable to conceive for that length of time. But I hope it's okay if I go off on a little tangent right now.
Please do.
Yeah. So I actually really hate the label infertility, because, and that's what I think that people need to know, is that when you're given a diagnoses are just labels that are the top, like an umbrella term for a list of symptoms that doctors use to communicate with each other. But so, for instance, it's a couple could have sex unprotected twice a week for an entire year and not get pregnant, not because there's anything physically wrong, but just because the timing is off. So then that leads you to, so then imagine now that couple goes to a clinic or their doctor and they're all stressed and worried that something's wrong. And then they're, put on medications or, go down the whole infertility path, but really it was perhaps just the timing was wrong. And so that's just one example of a more root cause thing that could be going on. But my point is that when a couple is given the label of infertility, I think that it has such a negative effect on their stress and their it has what is called the nocebo effect, is when the opposite of the placebo effect. So it's it's so defeating. And so, yeah. And then, but underlying that, it's well, why are you having trouble getting pregnant? And I find that there is always a reason. It's just, we have to do some digging. So yeah, I'm not a big fan of the label because unfortunately, I feel like it can do more harm than good. But yeah, it's about a year of when a couple can't conceive. Yeah.
And it's so interesting, the basis of timing. That's something as simple as, you not having intercourse when you're ovulating or around that ovulation time, that you're not falling pregnant. And, it's the lack of awareness and the lack of education that goes through it. And like you said, with labels also comes that stressor. And it's not just with the label of infertility, it's with a label of a lot of other things in life. But that is definitely a stressor. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. Because imagine, like you said, there's a couple that's trying for a month for a year, and then they get classified as infertile, and then that's a stressor. That's a total another stressor. It's okay, so then you've got, I'm infertile and I'm stressed, and it's
yeah, it's definitely going to make things worse, probably.
Yeah. So I guess the relationship between stress and infertility has been debated for years and years and years. It's kind of can infertility cause stress? Does stress cause infertility? Which one came first, the chicken or the egg? I guess that is the real question. So how does stress actually affect fertility in that sense, or infertility? How does it affect it?
Yeah, absolutely. So our bodies are really intelligent, and they're always working for us to survive, to thrive. And so if your body is super, super stressed for some reason, that sends the signal out to your cells, to your whole body, that you're in the fight or flight response, which I'm sure you talk about a lot, right? But it's like a survival thing. It's okay, it's not safe. I'm so stressed. It's I'm running from the bear, I'm running from the lion. It's not safe to procreate right now. So that could, I think in extreme circumstances, if a woman is super, super stressed, that could be the case, where her body just feels like it's not safe. It's too stressful of a situation to have a baby. I mean, and then there's other ways that our bodies can be stressed, physically. If there's maybe perhaps not enough nutrients in the diet, or if somehow I'm, maybe that you're running tons of marathons and like you're not eating enough nutrients. That would be a lot of physical stress in the body that would also be communicating that there's not maybe enough food around, or like that, not enough calories, that kind of thing. But I think, I don't know how much like from like a root cause perspective, I think that all women who have infertility or are, labeled with infertility are definitely stressed. And I'm not convinced that that's always the cause. I think that it's usually like a mind-body kind of energy block. And that's like what I really specialize with. Or it could be a deficiency, like I was just talking, like not enough of certain nutrients in the diet, or, the timing, like I was talking about earlier too. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, we can just assume that anyone who's dealing with infertility is definitely stressed. Yeah.
Yeah. Because their body is not ready to grow this beautiful little bulbs in them. So it's kind of like their body's unable to even support them, yet alone something or someone else. But you said mind-body block. Are you able to expand a little bit more on that?
Sure. Yeah, this is, I was talking to you a bit earlier about, how I was so driven to become a naturopath because I'm like so obsessed with like, well, why does disease happen and to some people and to not to others. And so it's like, just led me on this whole journey. And what I've come to know and to learn is that, and science backs this up, is that we are really energy. Like, even though we seem like we're all like really physically here, of course, with quantum physics, now we know that on a deep molecular, crazy to understand level, we are energy. And so what I find is that sometimes things happen, small traumas, big traumas, even, of course, things like miscarriages, even just the trauma of being diagnosed with infertility. So these things all can affect us I call it like mind body, but like an energetic way. And these blocks can block up our meridian system. And we're just so powerful. People don't realize how powerful we are and how powerful our subconscious is. And so basically, like, these blocks can, on a subconscious mind body energetic way, can prevent us from getting pregnant. And so that's what I find is usually the case when it's even I would say explained infertility, but especially when it's unexplained infertility, usually there is that energetic block caused by some kind of event or something in the past of the woman or the man. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very fascinating.
I love that. That's getting deep, and I love this deep. I love it.
Oh yeah.
Because it's kind of like, especially like you said, the unexplained. The female, has her menstrual cycle on time. She ovulates. The male sperm is fine. And then it's kind of like the timing is right. All of those things. Their health is on point. It's kind of like, why? And that's where what you just said is key, isn't it? It's the emotions, it's the trauma, it's the connection with it, the mind-body connection.
Yeah, it's really going to be the medicine of the future. It's just so fascinating when you really like get into it. But yeah, we're really super powerful, and and that's the idea of meridians and energy systems is what acupuncture is based on. So this isn't something new. It's, thousands of years old, really.
Yeah,
the Chinese
are
very smart.
Yeah, this isn't new stuff. Like, us being, like you said, so powerful, and us being so in tune, like, this is old stuff. We're just kind of like relearning it now because for some reason we forgot it. So we're just relearning our subconscious, our powerfulness. It's kind of like, hey, wake up, buddy! You're so powerful, mate. Like,
yeah. And I'm so excited about it because it's like, it's like answers and solutions to this huge problem. Like, it's really actually exciting. So yeah.
Yeah, it is 100%. So look,
Yeah.
you've spoken about stresses. You didn't just talk about someone being stressed out about a deadline. You spoke about
Right.
food stresses, as in like they don't have enough minerals, vitamins in their body. You also spoke about physical stresses, emotional
Sure.
stresses, and things like that. Because most people go on their everyday life and they're like, I'm not stressed. Like you sit down with someone,
Mm,
beside you and you say, how you feeling? Are you stressed? What's your stress out of 10? And they're like, not stressed at all, So
right.
they don't actually believe that they're stressed. So, what are some actual signs and some symptoms that the
Hmm.
body does or gives us, a little
Hmm.
bit of a whisper to us,
Hmm.
saying that we may be stressed?
Yeah, that's a great question. Um, well, of course, if you have trouble sleeping, that's probably, it could be related to stress. Anxiety, of course, feeling uneasy. If when you're sitting and then you get up quickly, you feel dizzy or really kind of dizziness in any sense, that is definitely like an adrenal fatigue stress response. And even in just kind of being on edge, I would say is a good indicator of you're probably a bit burnt out. Your adrenals are probably taxed. You need to have some rest and relaxation. Um, let's see what else. Yeah, and being super tired. I would say like if you feel like you crash a lot, and you're really dependent on caffeine. Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess, it's someone's everyday life. Everything that you said, the
Mm-hmm.
listeners might be like, well, that's just my normal now. And I guess
Mm-hmm.
and that's where the issue arises is that our
Mm-hmm.
high stress and our, fatigue and our, all those things, it's become the norm for us. And therefore, when something huge happens, that's when we think we're stressed. Not, and then we'll go back to our baseline
Yeah.
stress, which is not normal baseline stress, which is extreme. and and
Right.
and we're in that every day, and that's where the issues arise.
Right. Right. Yeah. And I think sometimes people can just be on autopilot and they don't realize that that's what's happening. But yes, that makes total sense what you just said.
So if a woman is going through that at the moment, right, and they're highly stressed, or they believe they're not stressed, but their body is
Uh-huh.
saying, you are pretty stressed, how
Yeah.
can that actually impact fertility? Like what actually happens? What happens in our body,
Oh,
and how does
sure.
it
Yeah.
actually impact, or does it even
Yeah.
impact it?
Yeah, totally. Because so that would, well, I'm sure your readers are somewhat familiar with adrenal glands, or listeners, I should say, not readers, sorry. But yeah, that would be impacting your adrenal glands a lot. And so when your adrenal glands, which are responsible for pumping out cortisol, adrenaline, your stress hormones, what happens is if they're doing that a lot over time, then they start to burn out. And then because your endocrine system is so connected and harmonious typically and dependent upon each other, again, like it's just really incredible how amazing our bodies work. Then when the adrenals start to tank, then the thyroid will take over. But it's like a triangle, so adrenals, thyroid, ovaries. And then also your brain too, like the hormones coming from your brain. So everything is super connected. And so then your thyroid will take over, and then that can lead to hypothyroid or hyperthyroid, but then going into low thyroid hormone, and then you're going to really feel like crap. And then you're not going to be able to get pregnant likely because you really need your thyroid hormones to get pregnant. And then again, that's affecting those two glands on a hormonal level are affecting your ovaries and the hormones being secreted there. So it's all super connected. And actually going back to your previous question, another, I think, another sign of stress would be if your cycle is being affected, that could totally happen too, where, you might notice that your cycle is late, or longer or shorter than normal. But that stress could totally do that. So it definitely can really mess up your whole endocrine system for sure.
And does that happen like I'm stressed today, it happens tomorrow? Does it take a week? Does it take months? Does it take years?
Good question. I think it will depend on how the level of stress and how long it goes on. Right. Yeah, because
Yeah.
we need stress to some degree. Like it keeps us safe and keeps us from running into traffic, like it's a
I love that you
protective,
said that. It's true.
it's a protective mechanism. We need it to some degree. It's just that we've lost the concept, the right almost as humans to not be so stressed all the time. We think that we have to be stressed and that like we have to work so hard and we have to do all of these things that we don't want to do because of these beliefs and thoughts that we have, and then that leads to just so much stress. But yeah, really that's not the case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, women, especially here in Australia, are having a family, having kids later. So in their late 20s, early 30s, even late 30s, right? So what I see happening is, we go through this career stage, which is pretty stressful. We climb the ladder, we go up to team leader, we go up to be manager, maybe even running our own business, and we're running our own business and all this catches up to us. And then we go, okay, we're ready to have a family. We may be ready, but is our body ready?
Right. Yeah, that will, I think, probably depend on the person and maybe how well they can delegate. And what their nutrition is like and their relaxation techniques. There's all the things like what they're doing to take care of themselves, really.
Yeah. So how can a woman who's looking to get pregnant about a year or two, so for these women that are aged, in their late 20s or early 30s, and they're like, I don't want to get pregnant now, I'm not interested in it, but I'm planning maybe in a year or two or three, what can they do now to ensure they can improve their fertility?
Yeah, that's a great question to ask. And I definitely kudos to anyone thinking that way, because what we do, well, it takes about 3 months let me start again. In 3 months, you can really impact the quality and the health of the egg that's released during that period of ovulation. So 3 months in the least, but if you're able to extend that out to 6 to a year where you're really focusing on your health, that will just be so huge. People, I think, don't realize that it's not like, oh, you're just born with all of your eggs and then that's it. We actually now know that we can totally influence the quality of the egg and your reproductive system and the lining of your uterus, all these things, in as little as 3 months. So to answer your question, I think that eating a really nutritious diet, taking care of yourself with movement, getting outside, getting sunlight. I know these things sound simple, but it really, isn't it amazing that it's the simple things that are really all we need? It doesn't have to be super complicated. And working to, I think, do things and choose things, making a conscious decision every day to choose to do things that make you happy, because I think that is what will lower stress the most, and to make time for that and just realizing that everything will be okay and everything is going to work out, and it's okay to go to that dance class or go on that walk or whatever. The work can wait a little bit.
Yeah, I love that. And I guess, people who are running their own business, they have the mindset of, I need to be here doing this. I don't have time for that dancing class.
Right.
I don't have time for that walk. It's all, up in the air stuff. I want, logical stuff. I want to see results in my business. So yeah, so I guess if everyone is given this opportunity to have 6 to a year, 12 months, to prepare, how amazing is that? And you saying it takes, 3 months or so, you can impact the egg. But then also in a negative sense, you can also see if all of a sudden, you're partying, you're stressed, you're eating that, you're drinking alcohol, you're smoking, that egg, even though you may have stopped as soon as you found out you're pregnant, that egg was affected in a sense of 3 months prior to what you did. So it's kind of like minimum 3 months you need to prepare for pregnancy.
Yes. And frankly, the same for men. There's so much emphasis on the women so much pressure. But the same is with sperm. It takes about that same 90 days where you can really impact the sperm too. And actually, when miscarriages happen, half of the time it's because of the sperm. And, you know, these poor women are just, I mean, I'm not blaming the men either. Of course, like sometimes, you know, of course this just happens sometimes, but my point is that, you know, it is really truly 50-50 with creating a baby. Yeah.
It is 100%, 100%. And I mean, you know, such things as miscarriages. I know it's a lot of people don't talk about these topics and they're very emotional, and a lot of people, you know, but they are common. It happens so often. I forget the statistics. I don't know if it's in like 1 in 4 or something. I'm not 100% sure, but it's very common to have that. And I guess it's about learning to deal with that stress in itself.
Yeah.
And I guess when you're stressed also, you tend to change your eating habits where, you know, it's been proven that when we're stressed, we tend to go for that junk food. We tend to go for, you know, the food that's, you know, higher in saturated fats and so forth. So can this emotional eating also impact infertility? Like, does diet have a huge role in that?
Oh, yeah, I would say so. Yeah, I mean, for sure, we are what we eat, and it really, you know, it's, when you think about it, when you're pregnant and when you're trying to get pregnant, it's like what you're eating are the building blocks for that baby to be born and to develop, and so what you eat totally matters. And I mean, it doesn't have to be like this crazy strict diet. I think that, you know, just having a really wholesome diet, like with really the more nutrient rich, I think the better. For me, it's quality over quantity. But yeah, of course, emotional eating, where you're, you know, eating fast food or food that's really not so great for you. You have to also consider like the toxicity of the food. So maybe it's not necessarily, I don't know, whatever it is, like the ice cream itself, but it's like the additives and it's the crap that they put into our food that makes so many people sick, that's what we have to really worry about.
Yeah, it's so true. It's kind of like, you know, for example, let's say ice cream, let's take that in consideration. It's been, you know, classed as a bad food, and I don't even like classifying these things, but let's consider it classified as a bad food. But it's kind of like there may be 2 ice creams and one may be like actually beneficial for you in some instance, depends what's in it, compared to the other one that has all the additives in there. So it's so interesting that you say the toxicity of the food and what's in it. Everything needs to be taken on a face value and looked at as a food individually, not just blanket and be like, no, this is bad, shouldn't have this, and this is going to make you infertile, because that in itself is going to stress out people. That in itself is going to...
Right. That's not helpful. And I'm not saying, you know, I mean, you know, once in a while I love ice cream. Like, I'm not saying like that I'm perfect or that I expect anyone else to be perfect, but I think my point is what you just said, that it's really about like the quality of what you're eating.
Yeah. And also there's a lot of individuals who, let's say, being told that they're infertile, right? In itself is a stressor. And then they go on a holiday and they go, let's just put this aside. Let's put this infertile thing aside, and they fall pregnant.
Of course. Yep.
And that just shows, doesn't it, that stress may have been a contributing factor to it.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Who's stressed on a holiday?
And so I know, and it's almost like that surrender, right? To like, I'm going to just give this a break. I'm just going to surrender. And I think that that's just like then your body, like your cells are literally like, whew, okay, like more relaxed, right? Taking you out of that fight or flight mode that we talked about earlier, like signaling to your brain, to all of your cells, like, okay, we're not in survival mode anymore. We're not running from that bear anymore. Like it's okay to get pregnant.
Yeah. And also for the other half, the male counterpart, in the sense of, you know, if they are stressed out, their sperm may not be the best quality. If they are stressed out, they may not be able to perform. If they're stressed out, they're not gonna, want to. It's kind of like, oh well, I'm ovulating. Well, it's kind of like I don't want to.
It becomes like a chore instead of how it's meant to be. Yeah, sure. And I know that's a very common problem with couples who are going through this, unfortunately, where it becomes like this weekly, daily chore. Yeah, where the fun, the passion's taken out of it. Yeah.
Yeah, the fun, and we've got to put more fun into it.
I know that is
like, isn't it?
It's so true. Yes. Yeah. And so that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to totally change the vibration, the energy, everything that is around, everything that infertility is. I'm trying my program, like what I represent is like the opposite. Like I want people to be excited and to be like, have faith in their bodies again, and trust themselves again, and have faith and confidence that they can get pregnant, because I really believe that they can. And it total, like the last girl I worked with had been trying for 3 years and had two or three, I think 2 failed IVFs, had done all the medications, all of that before. And it was the mind body block that I had mentioned to you earlier. It's like this energetic block. We had cleared it, and within the first month of working together, she got pregnant, and now she's about 6 months pregnant with, a healthy pregnancy and everything. So that's like my biggest message I want to get out there is like, if you have infertility, especially unexplained, like it doesn't have to be that way. Like there are answers, there are solutions. Like you can get pregnant again. Like you can be excited again. Like it can totally happen for you.
Yeah. And how beautiful is that? And I think it's also key, like what you kind of said, is being the feminine, being that feminine energy, because that's what the pregnancy is about, and surrendering to that feminine energy, like that in itself is healing in itself, and understanding that we can carry these babies, and we're meant to do this. There's nothing wrong with our body. We have our mindset. If something's wrong with our body, our body is not going to want to listen to us being told every day, oh, how did you not hold that baby? I can't believe you're having a disconnect, right?
Yes. Totally. And that's so true. That's such a good point, that I firmly believe that too, that there's nothing wrong with these women, unless you're like not born with your organs or something, but I like to think of them as just being blocks. Like you are trying to go down the road and there's some boulders in the way, and you just have to kind of move them out of the way. And they could be the energetic blocks, like I was talking about, or it could be a nutrition block, or it could be like a timing block. But it's like, there's nothing wrong with the path. There's nothing wrong with you. It's just, you have to move those things out of the way. That's all.
And how beautiful is that, looking at it? Because it's kind of like, oh, well, I guess I can move those little, blocks out of the way. Like it can be done because I see the path. It's kind of like, I see it over there. Like I see it, And I think that's beautiful, because that also puts a lot of pressure off us. That puts a lot of light towards us, a bit more, fun, a bit more, just, it's okay.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
And I guess you would see that with the people that you work with.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. And it's about like reestablishing that faith in what you want and in yourself again. Because I think that sometimes it's been stripped away by that diagnosis and by those experiences. I mean, there's so much heartache, and especially if you've experienced miscarriages, there's a lot of pain and suffering in that journey. And so I'm trying to help these women not feel that way anymore, and to turn it around.
Yeah. So what are some practical tips that the audience can incorporate to reduce their stress and improve their fertility? And I guess that's what your program does. So what are some of the things, I guess, that the audience can take away from this podcast and be like, okay, that's a practical tip, I can do that? What's something you'd like to share, Cait?
Oh, good question. Kind of like, well, I would say figure out, sit down and kind of maybe take out a journal and figure out what is the thing that is stressing you out the most. And don't do it anymore, or
the end.
Get a new job, I mean, I think, ask yourself, do you really have to be doing this anymore? Can this situation change in some way? Again, like I feel that people get themselves trapped in this idea of like what they have to do, and then they don't necessarily have to do that. But journaling for me has been really huge. I think that journaling takes you from like up here and in your brain where it's like stress and worry and what if this and fears and it, in a constructive way when you're writing how you really want things to be, and like how you're, you could even take on like one side of a paper, write out your fears or your, your stresses, your worries, and ask yourself, like, go through each one by one. Like, is this really true? Like this fear. And then you'll realize like, well, no, it's not necessarily really true. And then you can write out like what it is that you really want or desire instead. And so I think there's a lot of power in writing out what you desire and like, how you want your life to be. There's so much you can do with journaling. I could go on and on, but yeah, I think that just writing things out on paper, there's something really therapeutic about it. And I think that that's like an easy thing that people can do every day.
Yeah. I mean, you started off by saying sit down. I guess that's probably the hardest part.
Yeah.
I guess for these individuals, just to sit down and literally just sit, like that in itself is hard for some people, is confronting, is like, I've got to be doing something, and then getting that pen out and then writing and confronting it. That in itself is a huge healing process. And I think it's an absolutely great practical tip. Is there anything else that you think would assist them with their fertility?
Oh, sure. I would say making the changes now, like even if they're slowly over time, to how you would act or eat or be when you are pregnant. So like you were saying earlier, partying is probably not going to help, that sort of thing. Like you wouldn't be partying if you were pregnant. So like eating a nutritious diet, lots of movement, getting outside, the sunlight, the fresh air, working on your stress now, lowering the burden of stress now.
Yeah,
definitely.
Act like you're pregnant. And then if you act like you're pregnant, there's so many things that you'll say no to and so many other things you'll say yes to. That is brilliant.
Exactly.
And it's funny because most people when they're pregnant, they're like, oh, I can't eat that cheese or I can't eat salad because of, all those the potential risks. Yeah. And it's kind of like, okay, but what about all the other things? What about all the other things that can potentially do things? And it's like, if we act like we're pregnant, 6 months before we fall pregnant, how great is that? And that in itself is going to clear the blockages too.
Yes. Yeah. And it psychologically kind of starts to get you there ahead of time. So yeah.
Yeah, that's absolutely brilliant. So are you able to give us a little bit more insight on the program that you do? If the audience is interested in it? Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. So it's called the Fertility Reset Program. And I'll be relaunching it in a few weeks, mid-April, actually. But it's a 12-week, about a 3 months program where we, remove any mind-body blocks, those energy blocks out of the way. And I show you how to align yourself like energetically, kind of like in a soul spiritual way, so that you restore your faith and your confidence in getting pregnant again. I show you what I feel like is the best fertility diet, and, there's recipes and meal plans, that sort of thing. And then also we make sure that you get your timing right, so you know exactly when to get pregnant. And it's, and there's going to be a community aspect of it too, because so often there's such a loneliness with infertility, where even though so many women and couples are experiencing it, you still could feel like you're just so alone and like no one understands, especially I'm sure within, your network. So yeah, and there's just a ton of support. And basically it's, I've left no stone unturned. I feel like it's everything that a woman with unexplained infertility needs to be able to get pregnant, really.
Yeah. That's brilliant. And I think, and in addition to that, they get someone like yourself that believes in them and believes that they can fall pregnant. And I think that is a bonus. And that is like the thing that may change things and may turn things around, because if you are experiencing infertility or someone's told you you're infertile, most people around you are like, oh, she's infertile, or they put that on you. But then having someone like you and the program and everyone being like, no, you are, it's kind of like, wow, that in itself does a huge shift and a huge change. So I think it's brilliant that you're doing this program and allowing people to access that information.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm really excited. Yeah.
You're welcome. Beautiful. Is there anything else that you want to mention to the audience before we wrap things up in regards to infertility and stress, or fertility in that sense, that you kind of haven't touched upon, or something that you want to sum up in regards?
I think we hit it all, really just re-emphasizing that I, like, just from personal experience, know that even if you've been diagnosed with this unexplained infertility or infertility in general, like, it doesn't have to be that way. It really doesn't. That it's pregnancies, especially even naturally, even easily. I know that sounds like so far-fetched for some of these women to hear, but like that is totally possible, really. So don't give up hope.
I love that. That's absolutely beautiful. Well, to finish off, I ask all my guests, as this is called the Natural Health Podcast, and we're all about natural things and little natural health hacks and so forth. What is your little natural health hack that you may do every day or every night or once in a while that actually keeps you on track and keeps your health on point?
Ooh. Well, I would have probably said the journaling, but I'll give you another one so that I really have an extra one. You know what? Quarantine has really taught me is the value of getting outside and moving my body and just taking walks like every day. I really noticed such a difference in like my mood and my energy, everything really. It's such a great thing. Like if you're feeling stuck or groggy or, just stressed and in your head, or like you don't have a lot of energy, just being able, even if you're in the office, being able to just go outside, and hopefully you have somewhere where you could go and just be able to walk around. I feel like it's such a simple, easy thing that is undervalued, but can really just make such a difference.
And it's so true, 100%. So I guess what you could do is take your journal, go for a walk, and then sit at the park and then journal and then go back. Because sometimes if we're journaling at home, it's just kind of like, oh, I just got other things to do. But if you're in about, so I get that's a brilliant little hack right there. I love it.
So do I.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so, so much for sharing all of this valuable information about fertility in itself and infertility and so forth, and then touching base on stress. Now the audience gets a bit of an understanding of, that it's not actually their fault. That these little blocks that they can remove and be able to work with someone like yourself and programs like that you host and so forth to get their fertility back on track, because the track is right there. So I really, really appreciate you sharing all this information. And if anyone wants to get in touch with you, I guess you have a website that I'll put in the show notes. Is there anywhere else they can get in touch with you?
That's the easiest way, drcait.com, drcait.com. That's the best way, yeah.
Brilliant. And that's where they'll be able to access your course also, is that right?
Yes, there's more information there, or there will be. I'm kind of
putting it all together
right now. Just redoing it a bit right now. But it'll all be there.
I'll put all that in the show notes, and then be able to get in contact with you if they're interested and so forth. But thank you so much, Cait, for being on the Natural Podcast. I really appreciate your time and your absolutely amazing knowledge.
Oh, thank you for having me. This has been wonderful. Really my pleasure.
You're most welcome. Thank you for joining us at the Natural Podcast. And remember, the missing link between failure and success is your health.